Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Esquire Coaching Radio, where we help attorneys achieve unparalleled personal and professional success. And now here's your host, Ann Jenrette Thomas.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Esquire Coaching Radio. It's such a pleasure to be here with all of you today. As you know, Esquire Coaching is a national coaching and consulting firm that is dedicated to empowering lawyers to happily succeed in the business of law. To that end, we discuss a full range of topics, from building business to getting a job to work-life balance and everything in between. Today we have a very special guest who's going to talk to us about leading from the inside out, how to fill the gaps and elevate who you are in what you do. So who are leaders? We tend to think of them as only in a business sense, the business owners, the CEOs, the professionals. But those who interact with others on a regular basis are all leaders. We all lead by choice or default. At a minimum, we each are a leader of one, which is self-leadership, meaning motivating and inspiring ourselves. The real question is not whether we are or are not leaders, but rather how well we lead by empowering, not managing, others. Whenever you enter a new profession, start a new business, or transition into entrepreneurial-ship, even if in the same profession or business, there is an identity crisis. It takes time to relearn who you are in this new role that you're doing. And being in touch with how you lead is critical at this juncture, especially for lawyers. So I want to tell you about our wonderful guest, who I'm honored to say is one of Esquire Coach's consultants and coaches, Donna Spina. Donna is a business, personal growth, and entrepreneurial transition coach, speaker, and author. Her unique, creative, guided coaching process includes the use of well-respected DISC behavioral and energy leadership index assessments. The results help her clients to learn more about themselves, discover their purpose and passion, better relate and communicate with others, achieve increased balance and fulfillment in their personal and professional lives, and identify and solidify the leader within themselves. Donna is also a co-author of The Happy Law Practice, Expert Strategies to Build Business While Maintaining Peace of Mind. That was one of our Amazon #1 hot releases. And also the book Woman Power, Strategies for Female Leadership, which is forthcoming at the end of this month. Welcome, Donna.
Thank you, Ann. I appreciate this opportunity to speak with you and your listeners today.
We're excited to have you. And I think leadership, it's one of our cornerstones here at Esquire Coaching. I really do believe in this topic, and I particularly believe in what you had provided for us in this opening. So before we begin, I just want to remind our callers that there will be time at the end of this show to ask any questions you might have of Donna directly. You'll just have to call 347-838-8719 and press 1 to get in the queue. That's 347-838-8719 and press 1 to get in the queue. And I'll repeat that later on. All right, so let's not waste any more time. How would you describe the clients you work with to develop leading from the inside out, Donna?
And my clients come from several places. They're small business owners or CEOs in a variety of industries, self-employed professionals, contractors in building-related fields, and new entrepreneurs, meaning those taking a leap into self-employment.
I love it. So, I know you work with different assessments. What are the 2 assessments that you encourage your clients to take that you'll be discussing today?
I work with the DISC. That's spelled D-I-S-C, DISC, and it comes in several different types. I also work with the Energy Leadership Index, where I like to refer to that as my HQL, my high-quality leadership assessment. Those 2 assessments, when taken by a client, really give a great picture of who they are right now and where we would like to take them.
I love it. And in fact, I had taken I believe the Energy Leadership Index with you. Isn't that right?
I believe you did.
Yeah. I really enjoyed it. I know it taught me a lot. How are you qualified to administer and debrief a client on these results for their assessments that you feel so strongly about?
Well, I've been trained by a master professional in DISC, and I've been using DISC for over 10 years now. I find it highly useful for hiring individuals and setting up teams. It's also critically important for business owners, managers, and sales professionals so that they can improve their communication skills in order to build relationships with prospects or customers, as well as increase employee engagement. And any business owner at any point in time in their business has to hold one or more of these roles at some point.
You're so right about that. I think it's wonderful that you have a tool that you can turn to in order to be able to really help assess where people are, what their strengths are, and just position them in the right field for them or the right position for them.
I couldn't agree with you more.
So, do you have a thought or idea that might surprise business owners or organizational leaders or lawyers in general?
Absolutely. Just because they're at the top of the pyramid doesn't mean they're above improving their leadership capabilities. Leadership comes from the top down, but engagement and the future success of a company comes from the bottom up. Statistics show that people don't just leave jobs, they actually leave people. More than 50% of the people would leave their jobs, if they could, to seek out work that is less stressful and more fulfilling. And that means there is an enormous number of disengaged workers while still on the job. One factor that could greatly reduce this huge turnover while increasing engaged productivity is a high-quality leader.
I love that. Could you describe what you consider a high-quality leader?
Sure. A high-quality leader is someone who is crystal clear over who they are and what their skill set is so that they can positively impact the people around them to create more engagement, more enjoyment at work, and just a happier, healthier workplace.
So I agree with you, and I think this is the part that a lot of people miss, especially as lawyers. People tend to look at lawyers as leaders just by virtue of the position, just by virtue of the title. And I think that this, what you're emphasizing here, being able to engage, being able to really demonstrate that commitment is essential. It's an essential leadership quality, and it's something, frankly, that makes us better suited as attorneys with respect to our clients. So I think this is fantastic. Now, can you talk a little bit about, just a little bit more detail about what the DISC assessment is?
Sure. DISC is a well-respected behavioral assessment. It's been evolving and continually being revalidated since its inception over 60 years ago. A person's behavior is a necessary and integral part of who they are. It's derived from nature, which is your DNA, as well as nurture, those forces outside yourself. Behavioral research suggests that people who are most effective are those who understand themselves, both their strengths and their weaknesses. Such self-awareness enables them to understand other people. They'll stop judging those around them based on their own personal standards and learn to appreciate and value different people and what they bring to the team or to the company. As a result, they can develop better strategies to meet the demands of their environment. DISC is an assessment that helps you learn how to respond to things like problems and challenges, how you influence others, how you respond to the environment's pace, and the impact of attitudes, both yours and others, whether they be positive or negative, and how they affect your behavior. I never refer to DISC as a test. We call it a profile or an assessment. A test implies that there's right or wrong answers or good or bad responses, or a pass-fail results. And in reality, there's no best or worst personalities. People are who they are. DISC does not measure a person's intelligence, a person's determination, their value system, strength of character, social or emotional intelligence, energy level for engagement in life, their openness or to new ideas or learning, or their willingness to sacrifice. What this tells us is that even if you have two people with identical profiles working in the same environment, they can still exhibit dramatically different results.
That's fascinating. Now, I have understood that DISC is an acronym. Could you just explain what each of those letters stands for?
I sure can. D stands for dominance, I for influence, S for stability, and C for compliance. There are 4 different behavioral styles. We all lead with primarily one, but we usually have a secondary that follows to some degree thereafter. So there is only 3% of the population that's exclusively a high D personality type. 11% of the population is I, 69% of the population is S, and 17% of the population is C. Most people are a combination of 2.
Wow, so most people are S's, huh?
Yes, so when in doubt, chances are there's some S running around loose inside of someone that you're talking to. Now, of course, there's other adjectives that go along with. I was just giving you the main word. And, again, we don't want to take a negative connotation from the word dominance that's associated with D. So like I stressed just a few moments ago, every style has its pluses and its minuses. The key is understanding how they exist in you.
Now, what about, I'm just curious, do you know if leaders tend to fall into one particular category, or is it just spread out? Or if you happen to know.
Well, it can be. There's a thing called flexibility, where even though you might be, the dominance tends to be the one that defaults to most companies as being who's going to be the CEO, who's going to be the sales manager, because of the nature of their job. But it's very possible that one of the other styles could fulfill that same function, particularly when they understand where they fall a little bit short and what they need to ramp up. So to pigeonhole someone into a job as a result of their DISC profile, to me, is some degree of unfairness. Everyone deserves the opportunity to become more flexible so that they can possibly reach a different level of performance. So to answer, the short answer would be probably most people at the top of the food chain in terms of corporations or high-powered businesses tend to have the D at a high level in them. But would it be fair to say somebody else who just has I, S, or C in them to disqualify them? Absolutely not.
That makes a lot of sense. And, this might seem like an odd question, but is it obvious to tell where a person might fall just by observing them, assuming they didn't take the assessment at all?
Well, that's what I do with my clients. When I give them the DISC and I debrief them as to what their profiles are, I also teach them the styles they are not so that they can try to recognize some of those little flags when they're across the table or across the room from somebody else that they're in a conversation with. Now, depending on how strong one style comes out or the other within that other person, differentiates between the ease of you seeing these signs, so to speak, on how to alter your language to better engage in the conversation or engage in the relationship. But I do develop a technique with my clients on how they can recognize things. As a matter of fact, I have a short story if I can share with you.
Oh, yes.
A client about 2 weeks ago, we did a DISC debrief, and that weekend she went on a weekend getaway with her husband and another couple. So with the newfound knowledge of the DISC, she purposefully observed the behaviors of the others in her group. She was able to figure out their behavioral tendencies, and she altered her responses to better suit the conversation and the situation. The key here is they were each a different style from herself. So when I asked her at our next session how the mini weekend vacation went, she told me, and this is a quote, "It was the best damn weekend of her adult life." Now that's a seriously powerful response. And that just showed me that she implemented what she had learned, and it was a practical tool in her life. Now this woman is also starting a second business. So she's been successful in one business, and here she is starting a second one, and now she has a new tool in her toolbox.
Oh, that's fantastic. What a great story. And I can see how relevant it is in so many of our different legal environments. You know, in the law firm setting, being able to get a sense of not only your own style, but understanding another person's style and how best to work with that could really increase productivity, minimize conflicts, you know, just I think there's a real value here.
Well, you know, that absolutely. And so many times I hear clients criticize themselves or others harshly, thinking something's actually wrong with the way they think or act. And then once they take this assessment, it brings clarity and peace, allowing the client to harness their strengths and identify and possibly mitigate their weaknesses. And when you begin to read about your own characteristics, you start to understand how other people see you when they associate with you and how you can adjust your behavior for better results. Ironically, the reflection in the mirror is just not enough to clearly grasp who you truly are.
That is so true. And frankly, and this is something I've had to learn, it's essential to have the complements. You know, if everybody were just D's or I's, then you don't get as much done. You're not as productive. You don't have innovation. And so surrounding yourself in an effective way with other people who are different than you or who have different styles than you really can just lead to so much growth and excitement, I think. You know, lots of good stuff.
No, you're exactly right, especially with teams or if an individual is going to hire an assistant. It's really critically important when the strength and weakness issue comes up that somebody else is leading with your weaknesses. It happens to be their strengths, so you have that complement going on. So that's where it's really critical in the hiring process. It's also critical in the getting along process. Once everybody lets their guards down and allows themselves to understand who they are and who they are not, it takes the pressure off of each other in terms of rushing to judgment because somebody is too loud or somebody's too extroverted and somebody's too introverted and won't speak up. So it allows everybody to play nicer in the sandbox at the end of the day.
Oh, I love that. That's a great image. It's so true. Before I move on to the other assessment, I wanted to just remind our listeners, if you have a question for Donna, now's the time to call in, 347-838-8719, and press 1 to get in the line, 347-838-8719. All right, Donna. Now, I know that you also deal with another assessment, the High Quality Leadership Index. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. There's a lot written about the topic of leadership, as we all know, Anne. The leadership formula is not one size fits all. Wouldn't that make life so much easier? But my definition, like I started to tell you earlier about a high-quality leader, is that powerful, well-skilled, versatile person who has a high level of awareness and a crystal clear understanding of themselves to influence, positively impact, and completely connect with those around them into action. What's the result? Knowingly empower others to live powerful, productive, purposeful lives who are also solidly engaged to the company's bottom line. And one thing is absolutely certain. When you have this level of clarity, it leads to power, but in a very healthy way. The Energy Leadership Index assessment that I also refer to as HQL, High Quality Leadership, it's a tool that reveals who you are now and what potential you need to develop in order to become a more authentic leader, both personally and professionally. A leader that inspires, connects, and motivates people to a high level of performance, including yourself. The HQL assessment is based on 7 perspectives of leadership. It acts as a key to unlock the door of potential that you, regardless of where you might be in the job hierarchy, might never know existed. My favorite way to explain the 7 levels of leadership is by using the symbolism of an elevator moving up and down the floors of a hotel. The least desirable form of leadership is in the basement, where the professional victim lives. The most sought after and highest level is the transformational creator, who resides in the indescribably delicious penthouse suite. We all have pieces of each floor in our leadership style. However, our elevator tends to hover or just get stuck at a particular floor or maybe even in between 2 floors. Probably the most transformational key is the HQL lets you understand why you see yourself, your family, your clients, and the world as you do. And once you understand that, Anne, you create the ability to consciously choose from these 7 perspectives how to see yourself, anyone else, and any situation or challenge that flows into your world. Using these 7 levels of leadership perspectives, you'll learn to develop or enhance your leadership mindset by recognizing your own gaps. This assessment has a bonus. It shows you how you change when under stress. Now, of course, none of us are ever under stress, right? But when you see the results of your regular assessment and how stress alters you, it is usually jaw-dropping. I had a client one time. She looked at her report while we were on the phone together, and I thought I was going to have to dial 911. I heard a gasp on the other end of the phone because she couldn't believe how she changed in not such a nice way when under stress. So this assessment gives you the heads up on what you need to do, how to talk yourself off the ledge before you respond either over-emotionally or very angrily when in a stressful situation.
I agree, and I can testify to that as well, because I know when I took the assessment and I realized that when I'm under stress, I tend to go into a more of a victim-y mentality, which does not yield any type of productivity, So,
no, it doesn't.
So that awareness and the fact that I think that awareness of what happens plus the awareness that you can shift upwards, you can elevate to a different state of mind, was really empowering and very useful in a few instances in my own in running my own business. So I completely agree with that. Now, I have a question coming in. Oh, sorry.
Oh, great. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
That's why the word energy is in the Energy Leadership Index. It's because we're not talking about how fast you can run the mile. It's more about your level of energy engagement in life. And you're right, it plummets to the basement, creating a victim, powerless situation. So that's what makes it so critically important for people to understand about themselves.
I totally agree. Can you talk a little bit about the difference between DISC and this high-quality leadership or energy leadership assessments?
I'd be happy to. DISC is a behavioral assessment. It's how you're wired as a result of both nature and nurture. You can't be born one style and then convert into another one later in life. Knowledge of your style and awareness of your tendency will allow for the potential for flexibility to take on characteristics of another style, but only temporarily. Let's look at it this way. Many of us could act like a social butterfly for a period of time, but if we're a true wallflower at heart, it's too tiring to be somebody that you're not. So eventually your true self will need to take over. Whereas HQL is a snapshot in time. This report shows what your leadership tendencies are right now in the 7 perspectives and where your elevator tends to default or hover. Once you understand what each perspective stands for, you can take control of those buttons inside of your elevator. That panel of buttons inside of any elevator, you can liken it to that, where you determine where, when, why, and for how long you intentionally and purposefully arrive at any given floor rather than just hover helplessly between 1 or 2. It's not manipulation. It's about making more of a conscious choice. So that's the difference between the DISC and the HQL assessment.
That's very helpful because it's nice to see that they also complement one another. One's the snapshot and gives you some indication about behaviors, and the other seems more like personality-oriented. So that's very helpful. Now,
right, and it gives you that ability that there's changes that can be adopted and manifested as a result.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's really the crux of leading from the inside out. You know, everything that you're talking about, that self-awareness and recognizing that you have a choice in making changes is the heart of what we're talking about today.
Right. And when I do these two assessments with clients, Anne, I show them, we discuss how they interplay with each other, how their personality style and how their energetic style compare and contrast. So the two assessments taken together prove even doubly more valuable.
That's great. It's very unique, too. What's another critical leadership concept that these assessments can help reveal?
Okay. What you do is not who you are, but how you do it is. So authenticity is a concept often discussed when it comes to leadership. Today, when people use the term authenticity, they usually mean that they're being honest or open or genuine. While these traits in the workplace are very valuable, to use the term authenticity in this way is to misunderstand its original meaning. I think Dr. Nina Burrows, who's a psychologist and author of the Little Book on Authenticity, said it best. She says, if you want to understand the true meaning of authenticity, you need to go back to its root. The Latin root of the word authenticity is author. So being authentic doesn't mean being honest about who you are. It's about being your own author. Authenticity is an active and creative process. It's not about revealing something. It's about building something, and that something, Anne, is you. As a human being, we are effectively born as a blank page. And one of our greatest gifts, and possibly a really daunting task, is the capacity to take that page and choose what you want to write on it. You have the ability to choose what kind of person you want to be, your values, your aspirations, and the principles that you want to live your life by, and the direction you wish to go. Of course, being given all that freedom is not always easy to live with. We seek guidance from others, like coaches, and that is where these assessments can step in, and the reward should never be underestimated. Being you is the greatest asset you have when it comes to being a leader. It's yourself that others will be inspired by, connect with, and ultimately trust. It's yourself that they will follow. The good news is, when you are truly, fully authentic, you never have to go through the process of revealing who you are. Your true authenticity does not require you to tell anyone else what your values are, because everyone won't be able to see your values in the way you live your life. When you're fully authentic, you don't reveal your chosen values, you become them. You live them. So if you want to be authentic in your business, in the workplace, or in life, don't focus on revealing who you are. Instead, focus on understanding and truly becoming your highest best self.
Wow. That answer just blew me away. That was so powerful, and something that I think is essential for our listeners to hear, because as lawyers, so many of us have felt boxed in and really unable. We don't feel the freedom to be the author of our own lives. So this is great. I can't believe we're almost out of time. So what's the next step for our listeners, Donna?
All of our lives are fast-paced and constantly changing, and there's rapid technology and discoveries that bring upon new opportunities, but they also put us into new stressors. So if you want to change the results, you need to change your beliefs. And reaching our highest potential is not a new concept. It's been a recurring theme throughout history. The real question, Anne, is are you being the best version of you? And if not, you need to learn more about DISC and the high-quality leadership assessments to see how they can help you lead from the inside out, fill those gaps. Even more important, how to operate your elevator to build credibility and trust with your clients or customers, while becoming more effective and productive in leading yourself first, then others, both at work and at home. And if your listeners have any other questions or inquiries, Anne, they're more than welcome to reach out to me. Again, my name is Donna Spina. My email address is coachingindeed@comcast.net, and my office phone number is 610-273-2626. And Ann, I can't tell you how thankful I am for this wonderful opportunity and for the time your listeners have taken to allow me to share this information with them today.
Oh, this has been great, Donna. Thank you so much for being here. And listeners, let's keep this conversation going. Tell us what you thought about this podcast, this radio show. Let us know how you're leading from the inside out. Just Facebook us, tweet us, talk to us on LinkedIn. You can find all those links right on our website, www.esquirecoaching.com. Donna, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you again, Ann.
All right, folks, next week we will be talking about how to have fun at a large law firm with Robert Graff. Until then, be well.